Welcome back, everybody. This month in AI was, well, it's been absolutely nuts. Even trying to keep up with it all felt like drinking from a fire hose. So we are doing a deep dive into all the biggest AI developments from January 2025. And thankfully, we have our resident AI trends expert here with us to break it all down.
It was a wild one, that's for sure. Just incredible to see the speed of all this stuff
I
happening.
know, right? So let's jump right in.
Okay, the biggest story got to be DeepSeek. This Chinese company just came out of nowhere and turned everything upside down with their new model, DeepSeek V3. Their claim is they trained this thing for a fraction of the usual cost, and that sent shockwaves through the whole market, like NVIDIA's stock just nosedived. What do you think was going on behind that drop? Well, imagine training an AI that's as powerful as what the big tech giants are using, but without the crazy budget. That's essentially what DeepSeek is saying. They used way fewer, less powerful GPUs. So investors started freaking out, thinking, what if this changes everything? What if anyone can make advanced AI now? And that fear is what tanked NVIDIA's stock, because if you don't need their super expensive GPUs anymore, well, who's going to buy them?
That's like DeepSeek threw down a challenge. Right. And then it gets even crazier because there are all these rumors going around that they might have actually used OpenAI's data to train their model. What are your thoughts on that whole controversy?
Yeah, it gets kind of murky there. On the one hand, you have DeepSeek maybe making AI development cheaper and more open. But on the other hand, there are some big questions about how they got that training data. The White House even started an investigation into it, looking into what it could mean for national security and intellectual property. So yeah, it's a complicated situation for sure.
For sure. And speaking of OpenAI, they didn't just sit around while all this was going down. How did the industry giants respond to all of DeepSeek's moves?
OpenAI especially jumped into action. They added this new Think button in ChatGPT, their popular chatbot. That button shows the AI's thought process, basically letting users see how it gets to its answers. It's a way to make things more transparent about how the AI is reasoning, which is something that people have been asking for.
So you can peek behind the curtain a little bit and see how the AI is working. Pretty cool. What else did OpenAI do?
They also made GPT-3, their advanced reasoning model, much more accessible. It used to be way more restricted, but now it's available for a lot more developers and researchers to work with.
And then there's the whole thing with them collaborating with U.S. national laboratories. That's a big one.
Huge. They're saying it's about using AI for scientific discovery and cybersecurity, but you can't help but wonder about where it might go, with AI and defense and maybe even weaponization. It's really fascinating, but also kind of unsettling.
Definitely raising some eyebrows. But it wasn't just OpenAI making moves, right? There was so much going on across the whole AI scene in January. Like I said before, it felt like drinking from a fire hose. Anything else really stand out to you?
Well, Alibaba, they made a big splash with their new Quinn 2.5 model. This one is a real multitasker. It can do the chatbot thing, but it can also generate images and videos.
Wait, images, A&D videos, that's crazy. Is that the first AI to be able to do both?
It's one of the first to be this good at what we call multimodality. It's really shaken up the AI community, like pushing the boundaries of what we thought AI could do.
Okay, I'm ready for another sip from that AI fire hose. What other innovations caught your eye?
There was also MML Small 3, a much smaller AI model that's actually designed to run on your phone or laptop. It's kind of a tiny giant. Might not be as powerful as the massive ones, but it's super efficient and customizable.
So you don't need a whole data center to run it. That's a game changer, especially for developers who don't have access to those kind of resources.
Exactly. It makes AI development so much more accessible, which is super exciting. And speaking of making developers' lives easier, there's also Code Llama Goose, this new AI agent to help with all kinds of coding tasks.
Oh yeah, I've heard good things about that one. What exactly can it do?
Imagine you have an assistant that can help write code, move it around, generate tests, even understand really complex stuff. That's basically Code Llama Goose.
Yeah.
Like having a super-powered coding buddy.
That's the dream. Okay, what else is going on in the AI world? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, Google's testing out a new feature where AI can actually make phone calls for you.
Hold on. AI making phone calls. Tell me more.
So say you need to book a doctor's appointment or get a price from a plumber. Instead of calling yourself, you can just tell Google's AI and it handles the whole conversation.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I would love to never have to deal with those robot menus ever again. Okay. Anything else happening out there?
There have been a bunch of new things in AI music generation. Refusion, the company that makes those cool music tools, they launched Fuzz, and you can use it to make your own original music for free.
Free music. That's awesome. What about Apple? They've been pretty quiet, but they must be up to something with AI, right?
You know Apple, always playing it close to the chest. But their latest iOS update has AI enabled by default. It's all integrated into how you use it, just making things smoother and more personalized.
So while everyone else is making big announcements, Apple is just quietly slipping AI into our lives. Classic Apple. But speaking of pushing boundaries, what's Tesla up to? Last I heard, they were still all in on self-driving cars.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're actually trying to launch their fully autonomous ride-sharing service, think robotaxis, by June.
Yeah.
And they're already showing off some seriously impressive self-driving tech in their factories, with cars moving around and parking themselves without any human help.
No way.
Huh?
So while other companies are still in the research phase, Tesla is putting their self-driving tech to the test in the real world. That's bold.
It is. And then there's this other thing that I think has a lot of potential. Reid Hoffman, the guy who co-founded LinkedIn, he started this new company called Monis AI.
Monis AI. I don't think I've heard of them. What's their focus?
They're using AI to speed up drug discovery. They're building systems that can analyze tons of biological data to find new drug candidates and maybe even design completely new drugs. It's really exciting stuff.
Wow. So AI is changing how we travel, how we make music, and now potentially how we treat diseases. It feels like we're at the start of a whole new era.
It really does, doesn't it? And January 2025 was just a sneak peek of what's to come. The pace of all this is only getting faster, so buckle up. It's crazy to think about how big AI's impact really is, and we've only just started. Sometimes it's not the huge headlines that matter, but the smaller, quieter changes that make the biggest difference.
Totally. Like what we were saying about Apple before. They're not out there making big announcements, but they're putting AI into millions of devices. It's changing how people use tech every day, just without all the hype.
Exactly. And Apple's not the only one. Microsoft is doing the same thing, putting AI into their stuff more and more. Remember how we were talking about OpenAI's Think Deeper feature? Well, Microsoft just made that free for all Copilot users, and that's a big deal for making advanced AI available to, every developer out there.
Yeah. Copilot was already amazing, but now it's powered by GPT-3. It's like having an AI partner to help you code. But OpenAI has been busy with other things too, right? Did they make a special version of ChatGPT for the government?
They did. ChatGPT Gov, that's what they're calling it. It's built just for government agencies with extra security and stuff. It can even run on their own servers to keep the data really safe and meet all those government rules.
So even the government is getting in on the AI revolution. It's wild to see how many different places are using it now. Tech companies, the government. It's changing everything. And, of course, we can't forget about the creative stuff. We already talked about those AI music programs like Fuzz. But I'm curious about the open source side of things. What's happening over there?
Oh, the open source community is doing some really amazing things.
Yeah.
There are so many talented people working on AI music generation. One example is the UI model, which is totally open source, and it's as good as commercial stuff like Fuzz. It's so cool to see what people can do when they collaborate like that.
It's really inspiring. Shows you don't need millions of dollars to get involved in AI. Anyone can jump in and contribute. It reminds you that AI isn't some, unstoppable force. It's something we can all be a part of and help shape. But, of course, we can't avoid talking about the ethical side of all this. That whole discussion about AI-generated stuff in the U.S. Copyright Office brought up some big questions.
It did. It shows how complicated things are when you mix AI and creativity and how the laws we have now are struggling to keep up. But the conversation about AI ethics goes way beyond copyright. There's a lot of worry about how it could be used in the wrong way.
That's a really good point. Like we were talking before about OpenAI working with U.S. national laboratories. And yeah, it's super cool to think about AI helping science move faster. But it's also kind of scary if you think about AI being used for weapons or spying.
Exactly. AI is getting more powerful all the time, and we need to be really careful about how it affects society. We need to put safeguards in place to make sure it's not used for bad stuff. It's a tough balance, isn't it?
Definitely. We want to encourage innovation and progress, but we can't ignore the risks. And it's a responsibility that we all share, not just the developers and the people making the rules, but everyone. Okay, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about something more fun. Self-driving cars. Tesla's making a lot of noise, but they're not the only ones, right? What's happening with Waymo?
Waymo has been quietly building their robotaxi service, and they just announced they're expanding to 10 new cities, including places like Las Vegas and San Diego. Pretty soon you'll be able to get a self-driving taxi in a lot more places.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see self-driving tech becoming more available, giving more people a chance to experience how convenient and safe it can be.
Totally. And as more companies get involved, we'll see even more innovation and competition, which is good news for everyone who wants to use this tech.
And it's not just self-driving cars, right? AI is changing how we transport stuff, too. What about those little delivery robots you see popping up everywhere?
You mean those little robots on the sidewalks delivering packages and stuff?
Yeah. Are those a real thing now?
They're becoming more and more common. Companies like Amazon and FedEx are trying them out, especially in busy cities where it's tough to get around.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how AI is literally changing how we move things around the world. And it's not just transportation, it's also how we live and work. Remember we were talking about those AI assistants that can control your devices and make phone calls? I can't wait for that.
I know, right? It's amazing to think what we'll be able to do. But also makes you wonder about the future of work. Like, will AI take away jobs or will it create new ones?
That's the million-dollar question.
It really is. Some people are worried about tons of people losing their jobs, but others think AI will free us up from boring tasks so we can focus on more creative and interesting work.
So there's no easy answer.
Nope. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Some jobs will definitely be automated, but we'll see new jobs pop up that we can't even imagine right now. The important thing is to adapt and be open to the changes instead of being afraid of them.
Such a good point. We need to get ready for the skills and knowledge we'll need to succeed in a world where AI is everywhere.
For sure. It's all about understanding that AI is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad things. It's up to us to make sure it develops in a way that's ethical and responsible.
Which brings us back to the whole AI ethics discussion. We have to make sure these systems are fair, transparent, and accountable.
Right. We need to be open and honest about how AI will affect society and work together to build a future where it helps people instead of hurting them.
It's a big challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity. We're in the middle of a tech revolution that can change everything. It's up to all of us to make sure it changes things for the better. So let's take a step back and think about what we've learned from looking at the AI world in January 2025. What are the biggest trends and developments that you noticed?
Well, the first thing is that AI isn't just some special tech anymore. It's everywhere. In the stuff we use, the cars we drive, the way we work, even how we make art and music.
You're right, it's everywhere. And it's just going to keep growing in the next few years.
Another big takeaway is that AI is becoming more accessible. Thanks to open source projects and what companies like Microsoft and Google are doing, really powerful AI tools are available to way more people now.
So you don't have to be a huge company or a lab to use it anymore.
Exactly. Anyone who's interested in AI can get their hands on incredible resources to learn, experiment, and make cool stuff.
That's awesome. It makes AI something that everyone can be a part of. But we can't forget that with great power comes great responsibility.
For sure. We have to be aware of the risks, like what happens to jobs, or the possibility of AI being used for bad stuff. We can't just jump in without thinking about what could go wrong.
It's a complicated situation, full of potential and risks. Exciting and a bit scary at the same time.
Totally. But it also shows that we're living in a really special time. The future is being made right now, and it's up to all of us to make sure it's a future we want.
We've covered so much, but there are still a few more cool things I want to talk about. For example, there's this trend of AI becoming more interactive and, I guess you could say agentic. Like it's not just about tools anymore, but AI that can act on our behalf.
Oh, definitely. And Alibaba is leading the way there.
It sounds like Alibaba is really pushing the limits of what AI can do. We talked about their Qwen 2.5 model, but they have that other one too, Qwen 2.5 VL7TB Instruct. That's supposed to be even more interactive. What's so special about it?
Imagine like you're on your computer and you just say, "Hey, Quinn, find me a flight to Hawaii for next week," and it just does it. Like, it searches for flights, compares prices, and books the best one.
Seriously, that's like having a personal assistant that actually, gets stuff done.
Exactly. It can even control your phone, look stuff up, make appointments, manage your smart home devices, all sorts of stuff. The idea is to make AI a seamless part of your everyday life.
It really feels like we're stepping into the future with all this. So much amazing stuff happening so fast. But speaking of amazing stuff, there was one more thing from January I wanted to touch on. It's about that new company, Monas AI, the one started by Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn. What's their deal?
Monas AI, they're going after a really big goal. Using AI to discover new drugs. Think about it. Instead of spending years in the lab, AI could look at huge amounts of biological data, find patterns, and even simulate how different compounds work.
So AI could actually make it faster to find cures and treatments for diseases. That's incredible.
That's the idea. It's another example of how AI isn't just about making life easier, it's about solving some of the biggest problems we face, like improving health and well-being around the world.
It's amazing to think about how much of an impact it could have, not just on healthcare, but on so many parts of our lives. We have Tesla changing transportation, OpenAI changing how we interact with information, and now Mona's AI potentially changing the future of medicine. It seems like there's no limit to what AI can do.
It's pretty mind-blowing, and we're really just getting started. The important thing is to approach it with, excitement, but also a bit of caution.
You're right. With all this power comes a lot of responsibility. We need to be smart about it, think about the ethical side of things, the potential downsides, and make sure we're using it for the right reasons.
Exactly. That's a conversation everyone needs to be a part of. But it's also important to remember that AI is fundamentally a tool. And just like any tool, it can be used in good ways or bad ways. It depends on us.
Well said. We've covered a ton in our January 2025 recap. Everything from self-driving cars and AI making phone calls to AI music and new drugs. It's been quite a ride. Before we wrap up, is there one big takeaway you'd want to leave our listeners with?
I think the main thing that stands out to me is that this whole AI revolution is just getting started. It's changing so fast that it's almost impossible to know what the future will look like. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be exciting.
Definitely exciting. And maybe a little scary too, right? But as long as we stay informed, stay engaged, and stay curious, I think we can make sure AI is a force for good in the world. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep exploring the amazing world of AI. Who knows what incredible things are coming next?